one of our 3 trainers that we have like this, an AT6. And this particular one is used to give flight demonstrations for about a half hour in length, and they last about, well, say they cost about $340. You get to sit in the back seat. The other AT6 that we have would be right here in this empty spot between it and the P-40 over there. And you can see our C-47 in the back. The propellers have been removed while they go out for their periodic inspection. So that's a story there, and you can see the batteries are down for recharge.
Tell us about the P-40 or the C-47 did in World War II with parachuters and dragging gliders. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the C-47 was really a versatile airplane, and it could carry 24 paratroopers, and it has seats on the inside for that purpose. They have a double door, and when you open up the double door and you put up some ramps, you can actually drive a Jeep into that airplane. You can carry 2 Jeeps. You can carry a howitzer, piece of artillery, and you could also carry in some litter cases if that's the way you want to use the airplane.
Where's the double door on the side?
The double door would be on the left side of the airplane.
Okay.
And we'll go around and take a look at that. And the other thing about that airplane is that
it was commercially made at Douglas Airfield in Santa Monica, California, and they made about in World War II about 9,000 of these and about 1,000 commercial planes. But it was a very popular commercial plane prior to World War II. But during the World War II era, they made 9,000 of these and 1,000 of the commercial.
Actually, this was a DC-3.
A DC-3.
Militarized version of a DC-3. And interestingly enough, at Republic Aviation, after the Second World War, Republic came up what was called it wasn't a turbojet fighter airplane, it was a reconnaissance airplane that they built for the military. They called it the Rainbow, and it was the fastest airliner at the time. And Republic is trying to sell it to the airlines, but the U.S. government had all these C-47s and C-46s, and they just unloaded them all. So the airline that had the contract with Republic canceled it. They couldn't pass up this deal, so a lot of airlines got an infusion of C-47s and such.
What was the name of the private plane before? A P3, or what did you call that before? What did you call?
I mean the DC.
DC3. It's called a DC3.
DC3.
Douglas.
Douglas.
DC3. That's really a DC3 you're looking at.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it was used to tow gliders as well as maybe 2 gliders.
Yes. In the D-Day time, they said there's the 4 days around D-Day, they said there were 50,000 paratroopers dropped in that period of time. There's some books that say that, so think of the traffic. If there's 24 paratroopers in each one of these planes, of how many planes were up there during that time.
And even think of the gliders.
Yes.
I heard a glider pilot participated in D-Day describe what was supposed to go on. You know, they had designated places, but then it came to where they were released to where they wound up. They weren't always released in the right spot. And so this one guy that I was reading about, he was in his glider coming down, and he's kind of looked to the right, and somebody else was coming in for the same spot, and he veered off to the right, tried to skim through some trees, and he wound up knocking off wings, wound up on the ground, and everybody got out. Very fortunate, but you know, they run into wild situations like that.
Can you tell us a little bit about this hangar? Because my understanding it's an original Republic Aviation hangar, World War II.
It is.
Yeah, it is. And they use this hangar not for manufacturing anything, but it was really getting things ready for flight test. and whatever other work they had to do after it left final assembly. That's basically what we did.
The basic layout, I think, the way Republic was at that time, was the fact that the buildings all lined up on that other highway going across Conklin Highway. And they came around a corner here like this. And this was probably pretty close to being the last one. This one, like, the next one. And as they were going up for flight tests, this is where they were prepped. In other words, the guys would go through pre-flight with them. The pilots would learn what was going on with the airplane. The pilots were probably going to be captains, lieutenants in the Army Air Force, and I guess you could have had some of the WASPs out there doing it too.
Oh yes, most of the airplanes when they finished the work, and they were flown for delivery overseas, were flown from here by us pilots.
No kidding.
Yeah,
And there were
So
cases when they're flying airplanes, and when they get to where they're going, they're not old enough to drive a car.
That's fun.
Now this, what Richard was saying though, if this is the last stop before, so these planes that came in this hangar already had wheels on them.
Oh, yeah.
And this was not where you were just at the early part. So you'll show us that in a little bit of where the other buildings used to be or
yeah,
are.
right,
Yeah.
right. We'll see that in a minute.
Some of the mechanicals from the original, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, the doors open up, they come up halfway, and then they swing out this way when we go in and out.
So you use these doors today?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. I was wondering
That's
how
how
you're
you get
getting
the
them out.
planes
We
out.
actually have a firm from Russia that comes and keeps them working.
Really?
Yes.
So they come halfway up and then they swing out.
Yeah, they go up to about the halfway mark, about where the halfway mark is. They stop going up, and then the whole thing swings. So it's quite an individual, a mechanically ingenious way to get them up. So they go up halfway, and then the whole thing swings out. So and you can put them up one door at a time, and there are 3 doors.
Are they on the other side too?
Yes. So you can actually open up the whole thing, and all you've got, if you were to open the hangar up completely, there's nothing in the middle. It's just all supported by the beams out there.
And up on the ceiling there's a machine up on the top here. Is there any significance of what went on in the ceiling?
Those were basically used to move heavy parts that were going to be putting the airplanes together. We don't use them anymore, but yeah, that's original stuff. That's the stuff that Grumman used to move engines or whatever had to be lifted from one place to another. And there are 3 beams. There's one there, one there, and they ran the entire length of the hangar.
So you had 3 lines here.
Yes.
3 lines running the planes down each line. I think in Evansville, I thought at one time when we said Evansville, Indiana Division of Republic Aviation, we had 10 lines, but I may not be right. But I thought there were 10 lines, and it may be wrong on that.
Yeah, I have to look at the photos.
I don't know if our building's that wide. It'd be pretty wide for that.
The final assembly building had at least enough room for 3 lines. But that building doesn't exist any longer. But in here,
Is there any buildings left except this one for Republic Aviation where they made made the P-47s?
no, but there's probably a building that remains of one
Yes.
that they had some mock-up work in. As a young engineer, I used to see mock-ups of some of their stuff in there.
And one of the problems with this building now is the fact that they're looking to put an ILS on the runway, which is almost right outside this building. And the problem is that we're going to be blocking that signal. And so technically, if they're going to put the ILS in, this building has to come down or be moved. I don't see a building this old being moved.
Describe an ILS.
An ILS is an instrument landing system. It's basically, those of you who know how to use a VOR, it shows up on VOR number 1, and it's got 2 needles on it, a horizontal and a vertical, and it shows you where you are in relation to the center of a runway. And it brings you down on a descent of about 300 feet per minute to hopefully the center line of a runway. So that's what an ILS is.
What is the name of the runway here?
This is runway 19 going that way and 10 coming back the other way.
And how long your runways in were they here in World War II when you had Republic
As
Aviation?
a matter of fact, there were 3, and there's only 2 now, so 1 has been removed. There's a taxiway over on the other side, which is runway 22 and 04. That would have been a runway. Now it's just a taxiway.
What's the length? About a mile? About 5,000 feet?
Well, the long runway now is, I think, 7,000 feet,
Yeah, it
but
just-
it was a lot
68.
shorter then.
Yeah.
So right now, New Highway used to go north and south.
Right.
But now that road bends around the end of the runway.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So So we don't miss it. What other Republic Aviation displays or
We have some
things?
over here.
Okay, good.
And part of that was shut down because the guy was talking. So he shut off his mic. T6?
Yeah, by the way,
Or this one, Greg?
either one.
Either one.
They both have a similar engine. And during the Second World War, as a trainer, this airplane could be at any airfield at any time throughout the country. And so one of the biggest problems in maintaining these aircraft was keep track of the work done on the engine as well as on the airframe. So that means you have a logbook for each. And because of the fact that these airplanes might be any place at any time, when they do their annual inspection at any airfield, when it's time to do that, the question is, how much time is on the engine, or when was it overhauled last? So this was designed with a nut within which you could put in a copper penny. So they would look at the year on the penny to determine if it was a current year or within allowable specs. And if it was out of date, they overhaul the engine.
Did yours get that?
No, ours is.
Have you ever flown one of these?
Yes.
It's a neat airplane. I love it.
So,
You learn how to use the rudder again.
Yes, big time.
for comparison, so you look at that engine, that's about the half the size of an engine of a P-48, or P-47. The P-47 we're going to look at pretty soon has a 2,800 size engine, and that's about half that because it's got that's 9 cylinders, and the P-48's 18 cylinders. So we're about half an engine and maybe half the weight of a P-47 in range.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, the P-47 is probably easier to fly than the T6.
That's what I've heard.
Yep.
Yeah.
In other words, you can fly. If you can fly the T6, you can fly almost anything, and that includes the P-40 and the P-47 and the P-51. But this thing is a booger. That's what I said. You have to know what you're doing with that rudder pedal.
But the P-47 is a monster compared to this
It's a
T6.
bigger airplane. As a matter of fact, you can sit on the inside of that. You've got room to knock things over. Lots of room. This is getting a little tight. This is not bad. I'm 6'2", and I squeeze in the back most of the time, and I ride in this. But it's an interesting airplane to fly. I like it. It's good.
Probably the most significant airplane in World War II as a trainer. I mean, one of the most significant because it trained everybody, did it not? Everybody.
It depends upon where you go and where you were trained, but a lot of people learned in the Waco. It was also considered a viable trainer. Not as fast probably as this. This is considered a complex airplane in the fact that the gear can go away. You can change the pitch on the propeller, and it can exceed 200 knots without even thinking about it. So it's a rather more complex airplane, and it more readily trains you for a fighter of the day of the World War II era.
Yeah, some of the interesting facts that we found out about these is that the T6 trained more military pilots in history, period, even through today. And that's mainly because there were more World War II pilots. But it is the #1 trainer. Yeah. And they call it the pilot maker. We like to use the name often in our documentation and PR releases and all that about the pilot maker and get the kids excited.
It's a really great airplane in the fact that it was built tough. It had a fairly simple engine. I mean, you really don't have to be much of a whiz bang to be able to take it apart and put it back together again. I mean, you don't need to be a whiz bang A&E mechanic or an A&P mechanic to do it. You can almost be good with an electric what's that set that you used to play with as a kid? You know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The guys who are good with that know what they're doing.
Rector set.
A rector set. Thank you. That's the word.
And just, I have both in the background. One of the main concerns with this is a air-cooled, and also the P-47 is air-cooled, where the ones in the background there, those are 2 P-51s, and those are water-cooled. Can you tell us how that was important in World War II, air-cooled versus water-cooled in defense and bullets?
Well, one of the primary differences, the Navy, for instance, liked all air-cooled engines. And they didn't want to have any water-cooled engines or liquid-cooled engines, primarily because it was another maintenance thing on a carrier. So for them, it was simpler to have all air-cooled engines. So the Hellcat and the Wildcat and all those planes had that kind of engine.
That one, on the other hand, the P-40 is actually water cooled. She's got a radiator.
Yeah.
P-40 is water-cooled there, but the P-51 up in the air is
glycol.
Water
water-cooled,
cooled,
yeah,
water
beach
cooled,
ball.
air cooled air, the
Okay.
P40. Yes, okay.
As a matter of fact, Jeff has had a bath with that once. It sprung a leak, and where it wound up leaking is inside the cockpit.
Oh, but the liquid cooled engines, they are vulnerable in ground attack in that the planes cannot absorb a lot of ground fire. You know, if it gets to the cooling system, that's the weak spot.
You also have to watch, especially on a hot day.
Right.
Here on Long Island, it's very muggy and hot and sticky, and you have to be careful watching the engine temperature on this thing. And there are occasions when you're sitting out there waiting for traffic, you actually shut it off and wait and let the engine cool down for 5 or 10 minutes, and then start it up again.
So shrapnel and bullets for a P-51, if it hit the cooling system, there was a problem, a
Right.
big problem, where the P-47s and even a T-6, if it got a bullet because it's air-cooled, it could tolerate a lot more. The P-47 was a tank, and we're going to see it in just a minute here.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. It's right to your right. There's that puppy.
Oh, finally! Oh my God! You guys, there's too much preface. Too much preface here. We're going crazy here. This is what we're here for. Took us an hour to get to that baby. You got too much stuff here. Look at that baby. You got an engine. Oh my God! You got an engine. They got it all. Oh, Jackie's revenge. You know, why didn't this Mr. Kleiman move to Evansville? Tell him to get him a new house and everything. He get him a house and all kinds of stuff there. Okay, we can't talk about.
this
We can't
is-
talk about the P-47 yet. Okay, we're talking about a kitchen. My God, we got kitchens in Indiana. We're going to talk about a kitchen. We got this baby here. Okay, wait a minute. Now, don't.
For kids that don't know any different, that's what a kitchen looked like in 1943.
Yeah. Great exhibits.
Kitchens, 1933. Kids don't remember that, do they?
No.
Look at that.
Well, maybe it's the microwave.
The microwave. You
And,
don't
and
have-
this shows an office of, say, a design office of Republic Aviation.
Uh-huh.
And they show a draftsman over by the drawing board there, and you notice in his left hand, he's holding a forerunner to today's hand calculator
Yes.
called a slide rule.
Yes.
By the way, the picture that you see at the south end of the office, I don't know if you can tell from where you are, but you're actually looking out the south door of this hangar.
That-
You're actually,
right,
you're looking
okay.
at the next building down. And at that point, you would have seen P-47 sitting on the ramp, waiting to be taxied out and used. And the airplane that you see just outside that the pilot is going out to, notice the tail number ends in a 47?
Yeah, look at it. Oh, my. Now, you going to talk about the engine first or the plane? Okay, let's do the plane first. People won't understand. Yeah, go ahead. That's great.
This is the P-47, and this airplane was designed with a huge supercharger located behind the cockpit so that the plane could fight effectively at 40,000 feet. In order to get the air between the supercharger and the engine, they had to put the ducting underneath the cockpit, and as a result, they wound up with the heaviest fighter in the Second World War, but a fighter that could nevertheless outdive every German aircraft as well as outdive every Japanese aircraft. The airplane itself had a limitation in that it didn't have as much range as some of the others, so he couldn't stay with the bombers, particularly if there were targets deep within Germany. So at some point, the 47s had to turn around and go back to England. And if the P-47 pilot had no combat time on the 850 caliber machine guns, 4 in each wing, he would then seek out military targets of opportunity in all the occupied countries and then shoot at locomotives and military truck convoys. And as a result, they would wind up incurring a lot of damage to their planes. They'd be shot at, obviously, from the ground. And when the planes would get back to England, it was not uncommon that there'd be holes all over the airplane, and on a few occasions, 2 of those 18 cylinders in that Pratt & Whitney double wasp engine was shot away, and the remaining 16 cylinders continued to operate much to the pleasure of the pilot. So the airplane had a reputation of being a very rugged airplane, able to absorb a lot of battle damage and get the pilots home at the end of the day. So that was the key feature about the P-47.
Okay, up on the top of the plane, as we see the bubble, it used to be a cage, and that's a bubble. So that was made later in the era of making P-47s. That
That's
bubble was
right.
made
Originally, they had a T. Well, it
bird cage is what they called
yes,
it.
yeah, it
Razor
went
back.
back and it went into a dorsal fin.
Looked a little
behind it.
like the T6 over there, not
Right,
quite.
right.
But that bubble there is made at Hoosier Cardinal at Evansville, Indiana, a plastic company. So
Oh,
we
okay.
made the bubbles for your P-47s and a lot for other planes.
So what I should note about the P-47, when the Second World War was over, the P-47 wound up destroying something like 9,000 locomotives, 8,000 German tanks, 6,000 German aircraft, half in the air and the other half on the ground, plus tens of thousands of other military vehicles. The United States' top air ace, in Europe at least, was a guy by the name of Francis Gabby Gabreski, who flew a P-47 and shot down 28 German aircraft. As an aside, on his last mission, he was ordered to go home, but he wanted to go on one more mission. And then he flew too close to the ground, wound up bending his prop. So he had to make now an emergency landing behind enemy lines. As a result, he spent nearly the last year of the war as a prisoner in a German prisoner of war camp. After the war was over, he learned how to fly an F-86 Sabre jet, and during the Korean conflict, he shot down 6.5 MiG-15 jet aircraft, double ace. By the way, after that, he was then put in charge of the pursuit squadron that was based here on Long Island at West Hampton Air Base, out in West Hampton, Long Island. And when the Defense Department decided that they didn't need that air base any longer, they shut down the base. He retired from the service. He went to work actually for Grumman. He was in their PR department for about 9 months. And then the governor of New York State called him back into government service to serve as the president of the Long Island Railroad because the trains were running an hour late. And while he was doing that, at some place along the line, he got involved with the Cradle of Aviation. And he sent out a bunch of emails, and I happened to come across one I got from him, and I forget, it was 1998. I got this thing, I was living in Virginia at the time, and it was a promo about Cradle of Aviation coming together. You should maybe want to see there or get their listed their Roll of Honor or whatever. So my name is listed over there. But anyway.
To get an email from Gabby Gabreski?
Yes,
Wow.
and I found it. I knew I had it, but I
impressive.
found it just the other day.
That's my problem, finding half the junk I've got down in my basement and up in my attic. Where was that again?
But he's probably the most famous P-47 pilot. One of those missions, he came back with 200 bullet holes in his plane. But Gabby Gabreski's one of the most famous. Now, back to talking about what this plane did. Just so you look at those guns, those are Browning automatics. There's four. And each wing would hold about 250 per gun, so 1,000 bullets on each end. And if the trigger was held, it would shoot for 23 seconds. So you didn't hold the trigger too long. But the energy there is like if they have all the bullets open or firing the bullets, it's like a truck, a pickup truck going 60 miles an hour. So that's what hits a train. These were very good at hitting trains, hitting tanks, and they could carry bombs, which they did very well carrying bombs. They also carried rockets. The rockets didn't do so well, but those engines on there, plus carrying bombs, they dropped bombs. They were a bomber fighter.
Oh, yeah.
And they became a bomber as well as a fighter. The weight of that plane, fully loaded, is about 17,000 pounds. When you weigh all the other fighters in World War II loaded, they were like 9 to 10,000 at the most. So this was double the weight of most fighters. But coming from high altitude, they were as fast as anything else. But that was from high altitude diving. But it's a tremendous machine. What you said earlier is when it would escort the bombers, it would run out of gas halfway to the middle of Germany, and then they put extra gas tanks on the bottom, bellows. But it's still, that's why the P-51 had more notoriety, only because they had more long distance with the plane the wing we just talked about.
Oh, that's right.
No, but the wing here and the plane, this is in perfect shape, and this is owned by, I guess, the Kleiman family.
Right.
That's right.
And this is just a superb example of a P-47. If you look at the propeller up here, let's go describe the propeller up here. 12 feet in diameter, 6 feet propellers, 4 of them, and they tried 3 originally. Come on over here. They tried 3 originally, but 3 didn't work. They had to have 4 for enough, I guess, force to get up. And maybe you talk about the landing gear and show the engine as well. We're going to go show an open engine, but maybe talk about the engine, how we just compared to that other engine.
Well, this engine
Come up
is
here. The size of the engine.
It's a Curtiss Wright double wasp engine, and you notice it has a 4-bladed prop. We also have in this museum a Corsair which has a 3-bladed prop. Now let me talk about the 2 airplanes, their difference. The Corsair was a Navy airplane, and to keep the landing gear short, they went to an inverted gull wing. And that kept the landing gear short. They went to a 3-bladed prop so they get all the power out of the engine. Now this airplane has a wing that goes straight across. It doesn't have an inverted gull. And as a result, to get the power out of this plane, they went to a 4-bladed prop, but they also had one other thing that they did, which was unique about the landing gear on this airplane. This airplane has a landing gear which is a pneumatic hydraulic system. And when you take off and you go to retract the landing gear, the first thing that happens is they let all the air out. So the landing gear gets shorter. And then the hydraulic system pulls it up into a much shorter bay that it would need than if it was left at the same length that it is right now on the ground. So that was a unique feature that Alexander Cartelli designed.
They need by having longer legs.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, one other thing on that, look at the cowling. The cowling of this plane is very unique. Can you describe the cowling? Our emblem of our museum, Richard, and an architect or a designer, has our emblem of our Freedom Heritage Museum, symbolic of that. That's an oblong or an egg-shaped cowling where they're behind the engine there, and that's very unique. Most airplanes, you look, most of them, they're all rounded cowlings. We look at the other airplanes, they're all round where the engine is. This one's an egg-shaped cowling and allows, what you were talking about, the air. You could talk about the air below there because many were turbocharged.
Right,
And talk
that's
about the
right.
air intake. So
Yeah, it's sort of oblong in shape. So at the bottom is where the air goes back to that supercharger.
And turn around, tell us about the supercharger there, Roy.
Well, the supercharger,
Speak to me this way.
which is located behind the cockpit, is there to allow the plane to get enough energy airwise so that it could fight effectively at 40,000 feet. And that was a very critical thing. So this airplane, and anyway, so that was its primary thing. So
Tell us about, maybe Fred, tell us about air at 40,000 feet, how the temperature and everything changes, where this was a very unique way of getting air the right temperature at 40,000 feet with the turbocharge. You get up in front of the camera? The air at 40,000 feet is different than at sea level, and this turbocharge made a big difference for these pilots. They had a lot more power at 40,000 feet than the other pilots because of the turbocharge effect.
Yeah, the reason for the turbocharger being there, that as you go up into the atmosphere and go higher, the air is getting thinner. Most of what we live in is an ocean of air, and we're at the heaviest, thickest part of it down here. As you go through training to travel at high altitude, you wind up learning that as you go up, I think 1,000 feet, you've lost 10 degrees. And the temperature also drops 5 or 6 degrees. It continues to go down, so that when you get into an altitude of 40,000 feet, you're probably at a temperature of minus, I was going to say 125, 150. You are really, really cold air. I've traveled in F-15s, and I know that the outside temperature was minus, I believe, over 200, minus 200. I mean, it's chilly stuff. And the only thing that's keeping you alive is the suit that you're in and the oxygen mask that you're breathing through to keep you breathing air that's almost at the same thing that we're breathing down here on the Earth's atmosphere, on the Earth's surface.
So when that air turbocharged, what it is recirculating hot air.
Right.
When you recirculate hot air, is higher density,
What
which
you're doing is you're taking the air that the engine needs. Remember that you're burning a mixture of fuel in there, which is both gasoline and air, and it's making a mist, and that's what the engine is burning. And as you get higher, you're not looking at the amount of air in there that can really produce a good power supply for that engine. So what you're doing is you're putting the turbocharger in there to force more air in. So you're actually using air out of the engine. You're really jamming 2 or 3 times the air in there that you would normally be looking at. The P-38s did that on their engines.
Oh, yeah, right.
It was not an uncommon thing.
And tell us, we're in Republic Aviation hangar right now. The father of this airline, Sikorsky, I mean, he was just a heck of an inventor and a heck of a man to do this. I mean, at that time,
Seversky?
yeah, to help
Okay.
start Sikorsky to start Republic Air.
Right.
And I think financially they moved him out because he wanted to do more research and wanted to do more experimenting. But
Right.
but he was a follower of some of these things. Now this came after his time with the company, but he did start Republic Aviation. That's not?
But that's right. And it's interesting that when the board of directors ousted
In 36,
Seversky,
about 36 or 34.
whatever.
So yeah.
they had to get a name for the company, and the word Republic exactly fits in where Seversky used to be.
So it used to be Seversky, so the exact same letters, the same number of letters.
Right.
Republic has 8 or 9 letters, and Seversky, so they just switched it out, and then they called it Republic. And it was Republic until it went belly up, I think. I don't know what year it went.
Well, Fairchild bought it.
In what year? Or
I would say 64,
64. Okay.
63 in that time frame.
And then Fairchild is gone or still?
I don't think they exist.
I don't know if Fairchild Industries still has something in Hagerstown, Maryland.
Yeah.
They may.
Yeah, Fairchild.
They're not what they were before, that's for sure.
No.
Anything unique about that when we're talking here about those propellers are unique about the skin of the aluminum on the outside? Is there anything unique about that we should know, Roy?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. We're going to go over the other side and look at the engine. Now, you've got a makeup up in the air, don't you? You got a model up there. Is that a model P-47 up in the air there?
Well, yes,
Suspended?
it is.
Yeah.
Right.
It's that airplane.
It's that airplane up in the air.
Right.
That's about 1/4 scale up there. And you got another little smaller, too.
Yeah, right.
You mind talking about this engine for a minute? We've got an engine that you got it on the right same dolly too. Yeah. You got to look at me when you
Yeah,
talk.
and this is the I forget which engine this was. Curtis Wright, the double wasp engine. That's right, what it is. 19 cylinders, or 9 cylinders in each two
Eight,
banks
yeah.
of two. And but you can see the women worked on the engine in a factory, and we have one of these cylinders on the ground. So when you talk about the engine operating without a cylinder, when they were shot away, that gives you an example. I've spoken to some people that fly P-47 in Oregon in one of their museums there, and they told me of one of their cylinders becoming loose while the airplane was flying. So they could equate the S will continue to operate on the remaining cylinders, very rugged engine.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of horsepower, a lot of strength,
Right.
and it's really, you got double cylinders there where when you showed us your
Right, this
T6,
is
it's about like a T6, that's the front of a T6 about.
Yeah.
A little bit bigger cylinders. Those
Oh, yeah.
cylinders are giant cylinders though. Look at the size of those.
Right, a big thing here where the crankshaft is going through. It's quite a throw in there.
And Pratt Whitney is right near here, and they made the engines, Pratt Whitney,
Yes, up in Connecticut.
in Connecticut, near Hartford
Right.
area. And
That's where it would be.
they made our engines in Evansville too,
Right.
just sent them down there. And supposedly we made the wings for all your planes here in Evansville. From what we can find in records, we have a company in Evansville, it's no longer there, called Servell, and they made close to 32,000 wings for these P-47s World War II, and they sent them by train here, boxed them two wings per car,
Okay.
and they sent them all here. And we made extras because when they were injured in World War II or damaged,
Yeah.
they would just send the whole wing as opposed to fix them.
Right.
But we made the wings and we made that bubble top on there. So these
Uh-huh.
wings, from my understanding, Evansville, Indiana shipped them out here, and there's some photos that have pictures of them stored on the end in here when you're either behind in production or you're waiting to put them on the plane. And when you look at what happened in Russia, they only mailed 3 of them to Russia. When the transport to Russia, out of all the wings we gave Russia, we have 8,000 planes, but we did send these all the way to Russia, the western part of Russia, and actually the eastern part of Russia and the western part of Russia in World War II. Only 3 of them went there, but 8,000 planes went during World War II through Canada and Alaska and then over there.
Right.
Go ahead.
Republic Aviation Factory worked 3 shifts a day during the Second World War, and every hour a new airplane would roll out the front door, or the final
Every
assembly.
hour, every hour.
So they made at least 20 to 24 airplanes a day.
In the peak of their construction, probably or production in probably 1930, 44, 45.
Oh, that's right.
One a day out of here, Farmingdale.
Right.
325,000 planes made in World War II, and Republic Aviation made close to 15,000. So about 5% of the airplanes made in World War II were made by Republic Aviation.
All right.
And look at that plant. Can you describe a little bit in that plant that you got to make up of the plant?
Well, let's see. What they show in the plant is they show 2 lines of airplanes with the wings being assembled on it, and off to the side they show fuselages that are lined up where they're putting in various equipment
Sorry.
before they put the wings on. So that's typically what they would do, and they'd have a variety of things going on.
So fuselage there on one side, then they're putting the wings on one side, and this other side looks like I don't know what they've got.
They might be doing other subassembly work.
And then they got in the front of this plant, they're ready, rolling them out there for testing or something.
Right.
And they're pulling them out with little tractors there. All of them are being
Right.
pulled by a tractor. You got some person telling them what to do. That's a reproduction, probably pretty close to what you had, but you did have a roof on it then, did you not?
Yes, we did. And this, by the way, this picture shows what the airfield looked like during the Second World War. And you can see it had 3 runways, a north-south runway, this northwest, southeast runway, and then this other one that went from the northeast to the southwest. That one is now closed. The other one in this direction is now longer.
Okay, now, I want to get a finger here. Where are we right now?
We're over
That
here.
building right there.
Okay, right here.
Yeah, we have
There's a
another
hangar
thing.
over there. You're looking at
There's
the second hangar down.
this one right here, or
Where's
okay,
your
right
finger?
at the end of yeah. Look where my finger is. Right there.
Come back up just a little bit.
Right.
Yes,
here.
that's it. That's
okay,
it.
that's where Republic Aviation is now. Now,
Right. And there's a runway right outside of us. It
Okay.
goes north-south. It's actually 19er. The
Okay.
compensating coming back, it's 10.
All right.
And
So
then-
show me that you see the film
All right,
here.
this-
Just show me, no, on there. That put your finger down there.
All right.
That's the one. Tell us which runways were working then and which ones are working now.
All right. The one that was right outside our hangar
Yes,
did work. Okay, 1, 9, and 10.
it's on the other side of this hangar.
No, yeah, it's on the outside,
Yeah.
right outside this
On,
building.
right there, right on this road. That's
Right.
where one runway was.
Right.
Okay.
Now, if you follow where my finger's touching now, there's a runway going this way.
Okay. This runway, it was in existence as well, and that's
That's
what's the
3-2.
number? 3-2.
Going this way, and 1-5 that way.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
and then the runway that you see here no longer exists. That's gone now.
Okay, that one. Okay, but this other one, this one exist or not?
No, that one's gone.
Okay.
Suffolk
Now
County
we had
Airport is
Republic
now known as
Republic Aviation here. This is your building right here. Where were the other buildings?
All of these that you see right here in the foreground, most of these that you're looking at in the
Okay,
foreground.
look at here. Look at my film.
Okay.
Okay, now wait. This.
So when
Okay,
I
now.
Where's your finger?
Okay, right here. This is where your other buildings were really Republic.
All of
Aviation.
that, yes.
Okay,
And
it
then around
started
the
at this
corner-
end. The production started here.
That's correct.
And then they worked all the way down here.
That's right.
And we came all the way down here, and then we
Around
ended
the
up all the
corner.
way in the corner,
That's
and we
right.
ended up at that where we are right now. And this is really the only building left.
That's
But
correct.
Republic Aviation making P-47 started. Right. Okay, it started at this area here, on the
Correct.
other side of the runway,
Right.
and worked. What direction am I going now?
That way, you're going east.
Okay, going east, we get all the way to the end of the runway. Then buildings after buildings after buildings, and you probably had 8 buildings here, or how many
That's
buildings?
correct. I believe there were 8.
8 buildings, all about the size of this, and all did different portions of
And
this.
what you're looking at, the supply function here, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a railroad track. Where's my finger? There. There's a railroad track that runs right out here.
Railroad
So-
was essential for us.
That's
We have a
correct.
railroad that's right next to us in Evansville, Indiana. We're right here in Farmingdale, New York right now. But a railroad right there, get your finger down there. Show the railroad. There's a railroad to
Railroad
bring your
runs right here.
supplies. All the way along, so supplied all those buildings except the building where you were.
That's correct.
Yeah.
In other words, everything was delivered to a warehouse, which was probably somewhere in this neck of the woods.
Uh-huh.
There's also, let me see if I can spot it. Yeah, here. This is Route 110, which is a major route. Trucks would have been on that one. They can also make turns to come in on Conklin Avenue.
Yes.
And that's basically where the manufacturing happens. So everything that was brought to this factory so that the airplanes could be built was happening right about in here. And the aircraft were assembled going along this line, going this direction, around the corner, and down to this building down here. And the pre-flight would have been done right about in here. So that the airplanes were started here, went around the corner as they were being produced, down to here to the point where they're just about airworthy. So right in here where they were finished and flown.
Okay, now wait a minute. Back here to this. Go back here to this stuff. Where's your
Where's my finger?
See, you got one still.
Let me
Oh, okay, now back on our right on our factory. Put on factory. On our factory right now.
Oh, on the factory.
Where we are now.
now.
Where we are now. Okay, right there. Now,
Right
at that point, then your planes are ready. Then they have to test their bullets, the aim of the bullets. They also have to demagnetize. They also test their brakes.
Now,
You know where that was done.
Yes, I do. Come down a little bit more this way.
Okay. And is it still there, that area? Or
No,
can you
it's
tell?
all gone.
Okay,
But
but
it
right
would have
there.
been right in here.
They shot into a mountain or into a hill
There was a
and
hill
tested
right
their
there.
guns. They tested their guns. All the lead went right in there.
Correct.
And before they did that, they had to check their magnet. Where was their magnet checked?
I don't know. Probably still back here. I would think on the flight line here.
And where they check their brakes?
Everything was done right here. In other words, if you're going to taxi an airplane, the first thing you do when you begin moving is test the brakes. That's
Okay.
the very first thing you do.
Okay, all right. Okay, so that all happened on this airfield. Now, one of the things that's similar to our airfield in Evansville is we had to have trained support. And before they moved this, the first choices of Republic Aviation was told by Congress, you got to make more planes. You can't make them all in Farmingdale.
Right.
So the first choice was Suffolk, and Suffolk's first one was LaGuardia. LaGuardia said we've got no room. The second one was Suffolk, and Suffolk's landing strip was only 2,500 feet.
Sure.
So they came to us in Evansville, and for some reason we got it. Our landing strip was about close to 4,000. We had to extend it some, but we had rail and boat to bring supplies in. So that saved us, but also we had industry experience, but we'd never made a plane before, and we constructed our hangar in a very short period of time. How long did it take you to make all these hangars?
I'll put it to you this way.
Let's go down. Let's show you making all these hangars. Which hangar do you start making first? Yeah, right there.
Yeah, let's start in this neighborhood. I'll tell you one thing that I know for a fact, that during the war years, when we were producing aircraft here, Long Island's main job, and by that I mean this whole island, was in the business of producing aircraft. There were many companies out here doing it, and this is only one of them. We had over 35,000 people building airplanes here. So you're talking about engineers, you're talking about workmen, you're talking about women, you're talking about men, you're talking about people that of all stripes, people who were mechanics, people who knew how to sew, people who could work with metal, people who were carpenters.
Yes.
They did everything here. There were 35,000 people working in just this building alone. And there were other buildings also on Long Island that did the same thing. So when you talk about the war effort, one of the reasons I think that the United States and the Allies won the war is the fact that we were so large. We could put 35,000 people to work just building airplanes.
Yes.
The Germans, as try as they might to want to win the war, they just could not produce that kind of numbers, putting things out. And I think that's
They made 38,000 Messerschmitts in World War II, which is more than any one plane we made. But when we say we made 340,000, 25,000 planes, that's a lot more planes than they made.
Absolutely.
That was a Messerschmitt, so they made some bombers and other things, but they just couldn't keep up. Their labor, but also their supply chain was a problem.
That's correct.
But when you talk about that, you know, they didn't need us in Indiana, but they were scared of the invasion to our coastline, and because you're so close to the coast, they wanted somebody to help supply from the mid part of our states, where you were very vulnerable here, being so close to the water, that even though you had most expertise, they had to have a backup.
If you follow this runway south right along here and keep on going, that goes right out into the Great South Bay, which dumps out into the Atlantic Ocean. It was not an uncommon thing, as a matter of fact, for submarines to sit off of our south shore and actually listen to our radios. I remember seeing a film.
German submarines.
German submarine.
Yeah.
U-boats.
U-boats right out there, and you're on Long Island. And that's a straight shot from
Straight
right
out
about
there.
here's where Lindbergh went. We're not very far.
You're probably looking at, from where we sit right here, probably no more than 10 miles out, you're looking at a place where German U-boats could easily sit, and did sit. They were spying on us, getting whatever they could. They put people ashore once that I know of. There was a trial. I think one of the guys was shot. One of the Germans was shot. So it wasn't an uncommon thing. I mean, it's a place where we were considered as a part of the War Act. I mean, I was only a child at that point. I was born in 1940, but yeah, this place was actually still considered. We were supporting World War II.
And in our city itself, there's a book called Back to Valhalla. Valhalla's the guys talked about German spies in our town at the LST plant where we had in our town. So I'm sure you probably had some infiltration with some spies in your plants here. With 35,000 workers, you couldn't keep them all out. So they knew a little bit what was going on here.
I wouldn't doubt that a bit.
Any other models I need to photograph here? There's a model up here that, and Fred, you might talk about that. There's two models up there. Those are both P-47s.
Both P-47s. The one that you see, the larger of the two with the yellow and black, is basically with the one, the same kind of a top on the same canopy.
Yes.
The one behind it is not. That's the one that's got a.
That's the older.
glass.
That's the bird cage. That was what the
Birdcage,
first few years of
how it was
construction they
built.
had that. Our first 2 years, I think in '43 they changed it because the pilots were mad. They couldn't see behind them very well. With the bubble top, they could see a lot better.
Right. This is kind of a pain, because even looking out to the, when you're flying a low wing airplane, the wing is down below you. So
can't
when
see
have to-
anything.
You can't see anything. So you've got to tip the stick, get the wing out of the way before you can even look down to see what's happening. So that's really a pain in the backside, because you've got the framework of the canopy in the way too. When you had the bubble up there, you didn't have that to worry about. You just moved the wing out of the way and you could see what was going on.
Bubble like we see right here.
Like you see right there.
And made in our town. Hoosier Cardinal, and the man that's his son had just died recently. But Hoosier Cardinal plastic was a big part of World War II, and the Germans were a little ahead of us in that.
You see the piece that's kind of a black piece angled
Yes.
a little bit
Yes.
forward? Up
Yes.
there?
Yes.
You know what that is?
You tell us.
That's basically a piece of steel that was aimed to try to keep the pilot alive. You're basically going to be strafed, or if you get into a dogfight and there's bullets aiming at you, if anybody's behind you and they're trying to kill you, that piece of steel would deflect the bullet away from your skull.
Wow.
I mean, it might go down lower and get you in the back, but it's not going to at least take your head off. So that's basically a protection for the pilot's skull.
And there were some bulletproof things in this. That's a little bit of why the weight was, and also the
Right.
the gas tank was made so it would not leak. What was it called?
It was bulletproof. It was basically set up with a gum substance so that as a bullet went through, the gummy stuff would run back into the hole and plug the hole up. So she didn't leak too much fuel. She would still leak some, but not very much.
But that caused a lot more weight for this plane. Get right over here. That caused a lot more weight for this plane. They had so many, not just that, but the bulletproof stuff around the pilot, some of that caused weight issues as well.
I believe they probably took that into consideration when they were building the airplane. I mean, you've got enough engine sitting out there that
Taking most of the weight.
yeah, I don't really think it affected it. We knew that the weight was there, and we took that into consideration. We knew what was going on.
The balance of this plane, though, some people said, see, when a pilot up there, when you're looking at that pilot, he can't see anything when he's looking forward because when you're taxiing and your wheel and the back wheel isn't up, you can't see a thing.
When
Can you
you're
tell us about,
taxiing-
and there's a problem with landing and taking off. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Fred?
I will. When you're flying an aircraft that has a tail wheel on it, especially one the size of this,
The tail wheel, yeah.
the very first thing that you're looking at as you look forward is that engine poking up in front of it. You remember too that you're also leaning back like this because your tail is down and your nose is up. So what do you see when you look out the front? You're looking at the engine. So what do you see when you have to taxi in that direction? You basically push in the left rudder pedal and you serpentine taxi. You go over to the left until you've gone far enough to see what's in front. Go the other way. It's basically taxiing like a snake. It's a serpentine taxi. When you're landing a nose gear aircraft or taxiing a nose wheel airplane, you're sitting up straight and you do not have that problem because your nose is facing straight ahead, as in a car.
And so a balance problem on this for guys just getting in this, they couldn't see anything, and taxiing was not easy for them.
Well, what you had to do to get onto it, there's two ways into it. There's a step in the back, but most of us, and that's still what I do when I get up on it, I step onto the wheel, turn around, put my butt up onto the wing, and then slide over and stand up on the aircraft, and I keep myself on that innermost black walkway. That's where you have to walk. You're not supposed to walk out here because there's fuel tanks out here. Also, the cans for the ammunition for the 50 caliber guns is out there, so you don't walk out.
So you essentially climb up right on the wheel and get on the wing up here. Tell us that again here, Fred, up here. So to get on this plane is not, it's not even easy. Get in this, okay, right here, just tell us one more time there.
I'll tell you what, let's come around a little bit more.
Okay.
I'll give you
Just to get on in this plane's tough, and it's only a one-seater. So
If it's a
one-seater's
single seat fighter, I'll give you a quick idea as to how you get in it. You can either delete this or keep it on the counter.
This is for these youngsters, right? So he took
How we get
the,
into a P-47.
okay.
Slippery hands. And basically you do this.
Say, look at me, talk this way.
I won't do it now because we have the battery disconnected.
Yeah.
But that's how you open the canopy.
You pull that to open a canopy.
And there's a switch inside. You push it back. Canopy slides back. And then you have access to the canopy. You can close it from the inside. But I'm not going to do it now because I got the battery disconnected.
Yeah. And so he opens the canopy, then he climbs in, then closes back down. And then is that jettison, can he jump out of that? How does he get out of that if he wants to parachute out?
Basically what he's going to do is he's going to release the canopy altogether.
And it flies off.
Yep. Turn the airplane upside down and release the belt and fall out.
I see, turn the blood upside down,
Downside
release
up.
the belt, and he just falls out.
Yep.
That's how he gets out of this airplane.
That's-
And he already has a parachute on or not?
Oh yeah.
He's already got a
You're
parachute.
wearing the parachute as long as you're inside this airplane.
Okay, all right. Oh. And then very many guys have to do it that way?
The ones that got out, yes.
Yeah. Okay. This is for a younger man, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Not somebody 75 years old.
How many times do you fly this a month or a year? 30 hours?
No. I'll probably give you, if we're lucky, we may get 7 or 8 hours a year. We don't do much in the way of flying.
Do you
Not-
fly
not
it?
Building time.
Do you fly it?
No. Not qualified.
I see. Okay.
I can fly in the C-47, the B-25, but not this.
Okay.
This got too much, too much for me.
Yeah. Okay.
If
Thanks.
I was 20, I might think about it.
Thanks.
But I'm not.
Okay. And to get off this plane, Fred just slid down. That's all you had to do. And you don't hurt the aileron doing that?
No.
You're leaving that alone, right?
I try not to sit on it for too long.
Okay, okay.
And I was a lot lighter when I was 20 years old.
Describe that little tail, that little,
That's basically the steering mechanism. The main weight of the aircraft is held by the main gear, which is the main landing gear. This is the tail.
yeah.
And this is the first thing when you go to take off. You actually push the stick forward so that this comes up off the ground, because if you don't do that, as coming down the runway, let's say you build up 80 miles an hour, 85 miles an hour, time to take off. If you've got that stuck on the ground and pull the stick back, it's got nowhere to go. It can't go down. If it can't go down, the nose can't come up. So what you have to do is push it forward, let the speed build a little bit, and then pull back, and then the nose can climb. Same thing when you're landing. You land fairly flat so that you land on the mains. Let the speed bleed off by itself. The throttle is back. And when she slows down enough, the tail will sink, and you steer a lot with the rudder pedals and the brakes. That's how you basically keep it down the runway.
And what mile an hour does it land on, or what does it take off at?
You're going pretty quick on this. I think you're doing 160 on the approach.
On the approach, and then what on the takeoff?
I'm going to say you're probably going to, your tail will probably lift at about 50, and you're probably going to go airborne at about 85 to 90. You need to see, depending upon what you're carrying too, how much weight you've got on. You've got, the gas tank's full, and you've got whatever armament you're carrying, bullets, bombs, rockets, whatever.
Can you show us the center of gravity of this plane and how?
Yeah,
how
right
much
about
flex-
where, you see where the main landing gear are?
Yes.
Right about there.
So it's
In other words,
ahead of the pilot by about 3 feet.
Yes, the main reason is for anything with a tail wheel on it. The pivot point is usually the gear. The same thing on most airplanes. Right now, this airplane has got a lot of weight up in the front, so what we've had to do is elongate the full thing, so that right now she's overpowered it with the length of the aircraft. When you've got a nose gear airplane, it's the other way around. She's actually got a shorter fuselage on it. She's sitting on her nose gear. When you let go of the pressure as you're slowing down on this airplane, the tail sinks. In a nose wheel airplane, the nose sinks. So basically, the pivot point is those landing gear. That's basically where you've got the weight. On this airplane, the weight's behind the landing gear. In a nose wheel airplane, it's in front of the landing gear.
Can you tell us about the torque and how this is different? The torque on this plane's a lot stronger than some others.
She'll walk off the left side of the runway.
And tell us about that just a little bit.
When you put the power on, we can get into all kinds of crazy things, but it's called P factor. The prop is spinning hard, and it's a big engine, and she's trying to pull you off to the left. It's just a torque value set up by that propeller. So the whole airplane wants to walk off the left side of the runway. So what you're doing to correct it, when you put the power to it, as you increase the power and the speed's coming up, you keep increasing the pressure on the right hand rudder, and you try to keep your nose fairly straight down the runway. Same thing during anything. Once you get airborne, that's not a noticeable thing, but when you're on the ground, it's there. You know it's there.
Have you ever flown this?
I'm saying?
Have you ever flown this B-47?
No. I wish I could, but I can't.
Okay, thanks. We're at Thunderbolt, or the museum at Farmingdale, and we're now taking a picture of their case that has all their memorabilia. There's the Rosie the Riveter lady that we had a picture of a minute ago. There's a schematic of the plane. There's one of their Thunderbolt magazines. There's some little miniature jets, a tie class. There's another, and there's their magazine, Republic Life, Thunderbolt, lots of World War II. And there's Fairchild, who bought this company in 1964 or so. And you see some of the employees' buttons the size of $1 or $1/2. The product line. And we see badges here to get in the plant. A lot of security at that time. What we were saying a minute ago earlier about the there's the Army, the E Award that they received here of Excellence, 1945. There's the models that they have in their cabinet here. The evolution of Republic Air, some of the other more modern models besides the World War II model, starting with the World War II model, but working up. There's your Thunderbolt, and it works up into other times, very much in the airplane industry. There's a picture of the Thunderbolts in World War II, another picture of Thunderbolts in World War II. There's again with the factory itself. You see the factory itself that we're standing in. There's a person up there in a plane. It's the same one we just saw, the Clyburn plane that they acquired in 1997, but that has a lot of markings. You see how many other Germans he struck down. There's another picture of a Republic Aviation plane, and you see the memorabilia along the wall. They have a great exhibit here. There's the more modern, older birdcage, bubble top, and there's the other tops. And then you see the more modern plane that came out in the 50s, used in the Korean War, and you see that was more the jet age at that time, and made the wings there at Cervell in Indiana. This is the other more modern jet where they made the wings angled. That happened in the 1950s. Then we get into Vietnam Air, where they're a big part of the air industry. You look at this plane, there's a on the runway here, another one here. They have lots of good photos. This is very symbolic of Evansville, but if we look out the door here, we will see this type of tower, and this is right by their 2 or 3 runways. There is a more modern P-47 Ken Wilson talks about in Evansville. That's the one that would go faster than any other plane. That was their prototype for because the jets came into age, but they were trying to make the P-47 go a little faster. This is Sovereignty of Seversky. Remember, one of the major people in air industry. This is a book through Air Power. There's little models of the P-47, as you see right here, and then going up into the more modern age from Republic Aviation. We go back over here, you see more of the Republic Aviation, some more models here, well displayed here, and then you see into the modern era. So they start chronologically and work their way in this cabinet, as you see them working their way from older to a younger era, and then they have the whole P-84 Thunder Streak. This is what I said a little in the 1950s to 60s. Republic Aviation there's making the Thunder Streak. We made a lot of the wings there in Evansville, Indiana, at the Thunder Streak, made the Thunder Streak there. This is what the plant looked like in the 70s. We'll start in the 30s. This is what the plant looked like in the 1930s. Then the plant in the 40s. This was in World War II production, one of the biggest times of the industry. Then through the 50s, when you see the angled wings, and then through the 60s for the Vietnam Air, and then even to the 70s with the more of the jet age. They have all these in their museum. They have models. We're going along here. This is the Thunder Jets. So the Thunder Jets happened in the 50s, and they 50s, and then in the Vietnam era. And this is the same from Republic Aviation, but the wings made at Cervell and Evansville, Indiana. Still made a lot of those wings, but made here in Fairchild. You see buying the plant. Here you go see the whole. We're standing right here, so we're standing here and we see what happened in all this industry around here, all these factories that were present back in the World War II era, the inside of the factory. And this is the Thunderbolt War. Thunderbolt War, you see all the different P-47s. That, if you read the most recent book by O'Reilly on Patton said the P-47s were so important because they destroyed a lot of things on land, trains, tanks and everything, and Patton was very appreciative of that in World War II. That's why he said the P-47s were one of the most important things in winning the war, because he was on the land and he knew how important destroying of tanks, destroying of railroad supply that Hitler had in his armamentarium, and the P-47s helped stop a lot of that. So there you see the plane, and this is the back of the P-47. I ran out of something here. No, but the number on the back tells you where it was made. You can look.
Okay.
But I don't know all that.
I don't know it either.
But this is
The number underneath that you're looking at, the NX13453, that's our FAA number.
FAA.
When we call in, that's how we identify ourselves.
Oh my gosh, that's Gabby. So you see the numbers. This you don't have as many German things you had on the other. You had 20 there, but on this other one you had more than that. And look at the strikes he's got on there. Look at those strikes. So on the top, onto the left, that says how many trains.
Now, so
Look at that.
Let me explain so that
Yeah.
you know what you're looking at. You asked about Gabby's airplane, and I misunderstood what you were saying. This is not Gabby's airplane.
Okay, all right.
This airplane was found in Czechoslovakia, believe it or not, in Strauss Playground. It was left by us in Europe after World War II was over. Don't ask me how it got to the playground in Czechoslovakia, but
Yeah.
that's where they found it.
Okay.
So what you're looking at, this airplane is dressed up to show the American people who come to this museum what it would have looked like if this airplane had been in combat. You're looking at the very top row. You're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flags representing that we killed 5 things. If you look over on the far left, you'll see that we killed 1, 2, 3 V-1 rockets. The next thing down is truck convoys. You're looking at 15 truck convoys we shot up. The next thing down, you're looking at 5 trains we would have shot up. The next thing down is that we were doing dive bombings. That's 5 dive bombing missions. The next one down is rockets. Okay?
Yeah.
Now tell me what you think the bloom might mean.
I don't know. Factories.
That's a general all-around sweep-up operation.
Oh, run sweep up. That's general. That was miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous.
Yeah. But then,
MISC.
but there's 20 killed German or 20 shot down planes there. When I count
That's
4
basically
times
correct.
5.
You're looking at, I can only say that because I can still read it. The top one is the Focke-Wulf 190.
Yeah.
190,
Oh, I get the
190.
names on it too. I see. It has the name of the plane on the top. So
You
the
got
first
it.
one's a
Can you read
Focke-Wulf.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Focke-Wulf 190. The next one, Focke-Wulf 191, and one FW 190.
If Focke-Wulf is
Yeah, and then it
yours.
has Messerschmitt. The second row
That's a
is a
110.
Messerschmitt.
Which
Messerschmitt
Messerschmitt?
110.
Right.
And then it
190,
alternates.
190.
Yeah. So Messerschmitt has Focke-Wulf. Most of our Focke-Wulfs are Messerschmitts, it looks like.
Right. And there's a
Wow.
couple of things called Metro, and I don't know what those mean.
Metro, yeah. Okay.